I'm Rajeev Goel, co-founder and CEO of PubMatic, and I'm here with James Trott, Senior Director of Global Addressable Media at the Coca-Cola Company. We're here today to talk about digital advertising and the future of the supply chain, including curation, supply path optimization, and programmatic CTV. So tell me a little bit about your role at Coca-Cola and what your career progression has been to get you to this point.
Yeah, sure. So my role at Coca-Cola is Senior Director of Global Addressable Media. So really, in the simple terms, that kind of means how do we get the most performance out of our programmatic media or addressable media globally, in simple terms. The way I approach it is I try and simplify it into two pillars, and I use biddable language for those pillars. One is how do we raise the floor, minimum standards, and how do we raise the ceiling, try and deliver exceptional performance. The first one is all about best practice. So it's kind of being very clear on what expectations are, what good looks like, again, what behaviors that we want to see for every campaign that goes into market to ensure there is a minimum level of performance. The second one is a little bit more exciting. That's when we build products and capabilities that everybody can use. So you can get quite innovative there, really, if you think about the scope and spectrum of what data and technology can offer in the programmatic ecosystem, where we're going with algorithms, AI, all that kind of stuff. I have budget to finance and build products that our teams can use on their campaigns to deliver great performance.
So James, let's talk about addressable media. How do you define addressable media in your role, and how does it relate to the business strategy of Coca-Cola in terms of marketing and advertising?
Yeah, interesting question. There has been a bit of debate about exactly how you can define addressable, because you can probably take it in different ways. But I think that what we say is that you know exactly who the person is behind the impression. Let's say you can address exactly who that person is, and you can put them into some sort of audience category. But then to take it one step further, to really deliver addressable and to define addressable, that has to be married with some form of relevant creative message. So it's not necessarily having a variety of different audiences on the same campaign. If you speak to them all with the same creative, you wouldn't necessarily say that's addressable. You want to be able to have some sort of tailoring or some
personalization.
Exactly, to make that what we would consider to be true addressable media. I think that the role that has to play in our marketing strategy is a few years ago, I think the company recognized that media, society, really arguably in general, was becoming heavily digitized. People were really spending a lot more time in digital environments. That's both in the closed web and both in the open web. And we wanted to make sure that we kept up with that, basically. And there was a big shift from what was possibly to be termed old school linear media, buying a lot of TV,
right,
to digital first, audience centric, personalized experiences and all that kind of stuff. So I think on average, people spend 61% of their digital time on the open web, let's say. So that's a big part of anybody's digital day. And there are a whole host of publishers that they are interacting with. So it's important for us to be able to be there.
You've talked about curation, and at PubMatic, we view ourselves very much as a leader in curation in terms of the global scale, omni-channel scale of inventory that we have across CTV, mobile app, online video, web, as well as the product capabilities that we have. We think about it really as supply path optimization 2.0. So tell us a little bit about what role you see in curation and what are the benefits that you're seeing from it.
Yeah, I think it definitely does connect to SPO, and I actually think it's step 2, let's say. So things that will sort of semi-regularly get leveled at programmatic are questions around quality of media, let's say, because buying across the open web, for example, you don't always know exactly what publisher you're buying an impression on. So are you buying high quality media? And then are you paying appropriately and fairly for everybody that's providing value in the digital value chain? SPO is a great answer to that, making sure that you are working with market-leading supply-side partners such as yourselves and making sure you know exactly what your supply chain is, right from your demand-side setup to your supply-side setup. So that's step 1,
right?
Get your pipes in order. And then number 2, step 2, curation, is then how do you curate the media that you are accessing through that supply chain? So you've got a commercially optimized, efficient and transparent supply chain, and then how do you make sure that the media that you're accessing is as effective for your brand needs as possible.
So it's really a form of optimization in a sense.
I think it is. It's answering that media quality question. And there's probably two ways you can do it. You can use algorithms, and you can just let an algorithm loose on the entire open web, and eventually it will be so optimized that it's doing all of that heavy lifting for you. The other way is curate media, basically, and just make sure that you don't need an algorithm to optimize towards quality, because you've already set the benchmarks of quality, basically. And there are so many different signals and scores that you can use in the modern day, be that a level of carbon emissions, be that a level of attention, a variety of things, really. Journalistic integrity, for example, and you can tweak what those scores mean for you, and not just for what you believe philosophically, but I guess what also results in actual media performance and sort of striking that balance. So yeah, whenever I speak about creation to date, it's mainly been how do you curate media, but I know that there's additional things you can do on top of that as well.
James, what role does supply path optimization play in your overall programmatic strategy? And what do you look for in a tech partner like PubMatic?
So our SPO strategy is now established and will be respected globally. Generally speaking, we have a bit of a waterfall approach when it comes to supply side partners. Like, we believe that we're working with best-in-class SSPs, and we have tier one partners such as PubMatic that we spend with. Basically, we try and maximize spend with those partners responsibly. When we did the review, we established 5 pillars of criteria, basically, which was around coverage. We are a global brand. We operate in a great many markets, so partners that could meet our coverage.
Global scale and global coverage.
Exactly, those kind of requirements. Commercials, I guess for obvious reasons, if you're going to consolidate a spend, you would expect a commercial arrangement there. Strategic proposition, and to what degree that aligns, I guess, with our direction of travel and where we want to head with our programmatic ambitions. Operational support, so how
on a day-to-day basis, right? How we can support you. Yeah.
And then finally, transparency. To what degree, I guess, transparency is there in the technology. So they were sort of 5 pillars. And scoring was done on that basis. You guys came through tremendously well.
Yeah, we're excited to be a tier one partner with you. And how do you feel the journey has been so far? We're only a couple months in, so it hasn't been a huge amount of time, but where do you feel like there's value being created for Coca-Cola?
We really properly got up and running in January the 1st, sort of 2025, operationally speaking. And the first phase really is the structure that we foresee this happening. And it's 3 C's. It's consolidate, curate, and customize. Consolidate is, again, responsibly moving investment to transparent, commercially optimized supply paths. And that will have, I guess, the obvious benefits to those things. Curate is basically working with you guys then to understand what optimal media looks like in different markets.
Right.
I think a really interesting exercise that the Trade Desk did last year was when they released their Global 100 or Global 500, which was like, I think, the top global publishers according to them,
right,
which is a subjective sort of like thing to do, sort of think things can change. But it was an interesting exercise because it provoked the question, I guess, of what does the top 100 look like in the UK, for example, or what does that look like in Australia? Because if you use that top global 500 in Australia, for example, you'd be missing out on some really important local publishers.
Right.
So curation, I guess, then, and what we're looking to do is try and understand what is the top publishers that we need in each market, and how do we partner to make sure that we're maximizing exposure to those publishers. And then the third part, which I think has a lot of, again, innovation potential, is customize. And we just want to build some really market-leading customized solutions that are hopefully unique to us and our goals, and leverages everything that PubMatic has to offer, I guess.
When we think about curation, obviously finding the right audiences is critically important. What do you look for from a sell-side partner in terms of audience addressability, contextual data, identity data?
I guess it's how can a partner provide us with signals and solutions that will allow us to reach audiences that are important to us at scale. It's possibly a trend that is happening from between last year and this year that some of the targeting and some of the decisioning is happening in the sell side. That's something that we're still testing and still are very enthusiastic about proving out. But I guess even theoretically, you can understand the benefits, right? You can understand that there might be a commercially better way to operate. There might be performance benefits, for example. So it's something that we think will have a lot of value, and it's something that we're continuing to test.
Yeah, we've seen from a PubMatic perspective a big shift towards sell-side targeting. And I think part of that is first-party data is becoming more and more important.
Sure.
Right. So publisher known data, advertisers bringing their data, and when we think about a consented environment in terms of privacy regulation, then targeting on the sell side makes a lot of sense. As new channels emerge, like commerce media, how are you approaching that from a Coca-Cola perspective?
Wherever there is opportunity, it's only right for any brand really to see if you can get performance and results and value out of it. Commerce media, I would say for us, looks a little bit more like targeting audiences either on or off platform, and then trying to understand from let's say a closed loop sort of study what the impact might have been, or if there is online transactions to connect and sort of link it to, then we can do that. I think the biggest sort of challenge, let's say, is to try and have a accurate and effective attribution model that you're confident in, and that when you put media into market and you are measuring that on sales, you can be confident that media has indeed driven that sale.
How the online advertising impacted the offline behavior.
Yeah, exactly.
So consumers have obviously shifted their time and attention towards streaming CTV consumption as opposed to linear TV. Where is Coca-Cola in its journey of moving its ad budgets into streaming? And what are some of the challenges and opportunities that you're seeing there?
I think that we've moved sort of meaningfully in that direction, because there was the just general global transition to a more digitally led media plan. We've done that in a good way. I mean, there's different ways that you can go about TV and CTV planning, and coming from sort of agency backgrounds, you can either sort of try and stack up reach on top of each other, and you start off with linear, and then you can add CTV, then you add video, then you add social, perhaps. Or you can maybe look at it like an omni-channel touch point, right? And it's just another sort of part of your programmatic mix that you can use to reach audiences in an impactful way. I think that we're probably more in that sort of second camp now.
Yeah.
Again, because we've moved a little bit away of sort of like linear reach planning, and again more into digital first, audience sort of centric experiences. So it's a really healthy part of the media plan, I would say. It is the great brand builder, right? Like it is the screen that a lot of brands have been built on, and I think it's has a lot of value. It can deliver great impact, and I think we're increasingly seeing that in the programmatic space that you can have access to very high quality content. Something that I'm specifically trying to establish this year is something that we're calling biddable iconicity, because I think that when you think of programmatic, sometimes you can be sort of guilty of thinking about maybe smaller touch points and sort of smaller executions, but really we do live in a world now that has digital at home, it has connected TV, it has big gaming environments, for example. So we're trying to showcase and establish that you can use data and technology and you can optimize media, but still do that on these big, impactful screens. And I think just CTV is a massive part of that. So we'll be trying to hero and celebrate, continuously doing that, I guess, throughout the year, and increasingly more as part of an omni-channel media plan.
Now, Coca-Cola has had a long history of sponsoring live sports events, for instance, the Olympics. How do you think about live events, sports, challenges and opportunities in the programmatic CTV context?
I think that there is great opportunity for programmatic in live broadcasting in general, because in some sports, you don't necessarily have a scheduled advertising breaks. You will go to an ad break when something might occur. If there might be a player that gets injured or something might happen in a game.
It's timeout.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think is great to offer that opportunity really to the highest bidder of the time, right? The advertiser that's going to get the most value out of that specific moment. Things might have happened that might make that creative or that message sort of like more relevant.
Yeah, I think the opportunity that we see is publishers can actually generate more revenue from those marquee events because of addressability. Delivering a more targeted, relevant ad to the consumer should lead to higher CPMs because a brand, whether it's Coca-Cola or somebody else, is going to find the return or the ROAS on that opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
So AI is no longer the future. It's here today. Coca-Cola is using AI in creative, for instance. What role do you see AI playing in terms of optimizing the digital advertising supply chain, maybe in curation, maybe in supply path optimization?
Yeah, well, I think you have to see it having a massive role, really. I think that if AI is now quite clearly going to be able to do things to a far greater extent than any human could. I mean, I guess the promise of programmatic has always been optimization and efficiency, right? And that's been done through machine learning. I think that's only going to be compounded and even further by AI. So if I think about just media in general, we are probably going to move into a place where we give AI the keys to optimizing a media plan at large, really. And if that is going to be the case, then it's going to have to be able to do that within a connected ecosystem, right? It's not going to be able to do that, certainly not easily, with things that are offline or sort of siloed.
Right.
So really, I can just see the direction of travel in a future that becomes even more programmatic, really.
Thank you, James.
Thank you very much.